All right, greetings everyone, and welcome to the presentation on rhetorical analysis. We're revisiting it, and we're going to use the same essay we started with last time. It's Everyone Deserves a Defense by Peter Keene. It'd probably be a really good idea for you to have your original rhetorical analysis worksheet out on this, as well as the essay, because we will use those to build off of to complete pages 3 and 4. You should probably have those printed also. You might want to take notes. This essay, I will go through everything, and then on the next essay, I'll have you practice, and then the last essay that we're going to do with this is actually an assignment. So pay attention to how we're going to complete pages 3 and 4. Okay, so let me go over the rest of the worksheet. So you can see I've screenshotted the different sections, but you should also have, again, like I said, the worksheet in front of you. So first, you should recognize the graphic because it's the same graphic that we used in the justice paper to map out the journey, and that's pretty much what you're doing. I know that you can see at the top the directions say list below how the argument is supported, and then you see all types of different evidence in parentheses: facts, examples, analogies, authorities, causal relationships, common knowledge, claims, statistics, anecdotes, studies, and precedent. If you don't know what precedent is, most of the time it's referring to historical precedent, where you would trace an issue by looking at where it is or has been through time, and that's precedent. I think the rest you probably do know. But that is the proof. That is how author supports their thesis statement. So you're just going to trace what they did in the order that the author did it. That is their journey. So trace the stops along the way that you see them doing. Okay, next are the fallacies. Now, I went over these in the presentation on part 2 of the rhetoric crash course. Know that this graphic has 4 boxes. It is arbitrary. It just made a nice graphic. It doesn't matter to me as we're moving through these essays, and even as you're planning, you're going to use this same rhetorical analysis worksheet to plan your argument. And it doesn't matter if you use all the boxes or if you record like 3 or 4 fallacies in one box. Again, it just was a pretty graphic, and you use it and fill it in however you see fit. You don't always have to find 4 or always have 4. Again, it doesn't matter. Just fill in the boxes however you want and use the graphic. It's just a tool. Okay, but here's where you're going to note what fallacies they use. Remember that in rhetoric, there's nothing wrong with using fallacies. It's only logic where that's a problem. In rhetoric, like I told you in the presentation, it only matters if the person arguing stops talking. Other than that, you can commit any fallacy you want, but remember, you have to get away with it. Because if you don't, that could impact your character, and then your ethos is shot as an author. So, take a look to see what kind of rhetorical fallacies that the author is using. Try to find all that you can. All right, next is the counter-argument or refutation section. Remember, a good argument considers the other side. So when you're reading an essay, you're most often going to see a counter-argument start with something like some people say, or some argue, or the other side might state, something like that. And that is again called the acknowledgement, and you would put that in the first column under counter-argument. You can just number them, the columns go across. So first step would be to acknowledge. And then remember, after you acknowledge the other side as a writer, you then have 2 choices. You can either concede and refute, or you can just refute. So concession is not required. You don't have to say, well, yeah, they have a point. And you should never just say, well, yeah, they have a point, right? You should always have some kind of refutation in mind, and you can just refute. And that is where you would talk about why the counter argument is wrong and why your side is better with proof and evidence and authorities and things like that. So when you're reading and you notice that an author is pointing out the other side, you're going to mark that under the counter-argument column. If they concede, you're going to notice that too. And if they don't and they just refute, then you'll fill out just the 3rd column. If they do both, you fill out all 3. Okay. So the last part of the rhetorical analysis worksheet is Cicero's outline. We went over this again in the crash course, and you even practiced noticing it in the Acre TED Talk. Remember that Cicero's outline starts with an introduction. Then storytelling, that's your narration. Division, remember, is where the author presents to both sides of the issue and explain why their side is the more preferable side. Proof, again, is all the evidence. Refutation, I just talked about, and then they'll conclude. Okay, that's how you follow Cicero's outline. So you'll be looking for ways that authors do that. They may not do every part, so you're going to notice what they include and what they don't include and think about why. All right, so those are all 4 sections of pages 3 and 4 of the rhetorical analysis worksheet. So now we're going to get out the Everyone Deserves Defense essay. It'd probably be a good time to pause this presentation, reread the essay, and then I am going to quickly talk through the first 2 pages because I know it was a while ago. I think we did this the end of January, beginning of February, so I know it's been a while. So go ahead, pause and read. And hopefully we're back and you've read the essay. And so I'm just going to talk through the first 2 pages a little bit. Remember that the claim is introed in the second paragraph where he says, because I believe there, and then it's stated in paragraph 13, one person on your side, no matter what you've done, that's what keeps us a free people, that's what I believe. That is the stated thesis. It's at the end. He's trying to change our mood, our mind, and our willingness to act because he's talking about his law students at the end, that they should act as he does. That means that he's using demonstrative rhetoric as well as deliberative rhetoric. And he has a policy claim and a value claim. It's an opinion that everyone deserves a defense. And the demonstrative rhetoric is super emotional. That's that, like, it's everyone in the world versus the person accused. That's that idea. On the back, ethos, he talks about being a public defender for 20 years, having a 30-year career. That all makes us trust him. That builds his character. He talks about the nobility of the fight, his commitment. He sees himself in the accused. He's a teacher. All of that hints at his character. Pathos, he uses some word choices. He uses hurled, he uses shattered, he uses sleepless nights. That's an appeal to pity. He talks about pride, his conscience. There's an appeal to fear in paragraph 11 where he talks about if we take away that one right, what could happen. In paragraphs 1 and 2, he starts right off the bat with an appeal to anger because right away the divisiveness of who he picks to start the essay really does make the reader upset. And then the logos, if for a free society, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and a person on trial is still innocent, therefore everyone deserves a defense. So that's the first 2 pages of the rhetorical analysis worksheet. Hopefully that is ringing some bells and you remember us going over that a while ago. All right, we're ready to move on, and I'm going to talk you through pages 3 and 4, all 4 sections, and kind of talk you through how this essay dealt with those things. So first we're going to talk about the journey. You can see here where I mapped it out. The first thing he does is introduce his rhetorical questions in paragraph 1. Would you defend Saddam Hussein? How about Hitler? Would you be his lawyer? And that's how he's getting you involved right away. Then his opinion, where he says, because I believe no matter what, everyone deserves to have someone on their side. That comes in paragraph 2. That's the intro thesis. And then paragraphs 3 through 9, most of the essay he uses to set up his career. This is the precedent of his career. So he's using a lot of time to kind of establish himself as an authority, things that he's done, talk about his long career. So that's that ethos building, that's the pathos building. He does a lot of that in paragraphs 3 through 9. In 12, then it goes to 10. The arrows aren't on this graphic, but it goes down after that into paragraph 10. There's some facts about the process, right? There's one key mechanism in our society that protects and maintains all of our freedoms. And so he's referencing the Constitution at that point. So it's facts about due process. And then there's that appeal to fear, paragraph 11. If you take away that protection and all of our other democratic rights, which are so carefully woven in the constitutional design of our republic, become meaningless. And so then it sounds like all freedom is ultimately lost. That's that appeal to fear. And then paragraph 12, he has an anecdote of his job, that he's a teacher now, and he teaches his students to defend people just the way he did, with all the vigor and all the passion in the world, and that leads to his thesis. And so that is the journey, and that's how he got through his argument. Okay, next, we're going to talk about the fallacies, and I just used all 4 boxes because I had them. We're going to talk about, I think I've mentioned this a few times. We'll start in paragraph 9, where he says, in courtrooms, I confronted victims whose lives, bodies, and often whose very souls had been forever shattered. It's those ideas. The victims here, we're picturing them. That's an appeal to pity. We feel bad for them. Sometimes in their eyes, I saw members of my own family. Sometimes I saw myself. The battle within me was fierce. You're supposed to not only pity the victims, but you're also supposed to pity him who's put in this situation to defend people that might have shattered these souls and these lives of these victims. So that is an appeal to pity. Paragraph 11 is, like I said before, an appeal to fear, where he says all freedom is ultimately lost if you take away the protection. So that's an appeal to fear. You're supposed to be afraid that if we don't guarantee that everyone deserves a defense, then basically we're taking away all of our democratic rights and all freedom is lost. So that is an appeal to fear. You could argue that it's a reductio ad absurdum also, because it seems kind of extreme to say that, but is it really? That's something you might need to personally answer, but it is something to think about. Then the whole essay is an appeal to popularity. Basically, he's saying, I've been doing this forever. I teach my law students to do this. And so therefore, because I'm doing it, you should believe that it's right too. Okay? All right, so those are the fallacies that stood out. They're the most obvious ones. I'm not saying that's an exhaustive list, but that is 4 of the fallacies that are in there that hopefully, to begin, feel very clear to you. Okay, next is the counter-argument. He really only has one, and that is in paragraph 10, where he says, I know that most people have great difficulty understanding this. Indeed, many are horrified by it. And so this is where he's acknowledging that his opposition, people who don't agree with him, are going to be pretty horrified by what he's saying. That acknowledgement sets up the refutation with the Constitution, which is then in paragraph 11, well, the rest of 10, 11, and that's where he appeals to fear, that if you take away this one right, then, of course, all freedom is lost. So he acknowledges that it's horrifying to think about defending people who have done these horrible things. That's kind of appeasing the opposition, and then he defends it by saying, but you have to do this. That's part of what makes us free. Okay. Then Cicero's journey. He doesn't follow all of the steps. The rhetorical questions create division. So his intro and his division are actually together. If you look at the questions, would you defend Saddam Hussein? How about Hitler? Would you be his lawyer? I think the reason that he picks such extreme cases is because he's assuming the answer to those questions is no, of course not. I would not defend them. Nope, wouldn't do it, right? He's assuming that. So right away, he's creating division. Here's the other side. And now in paragraph 2, right? This is where he's giving you his side. People ask me this all the time. The names of the bad guys change, but the question is always the same. My answer is always, yes, I would. It has to be. And that's where he's saying, here's the two sides. No, which is the answer to the rhetorical question. Yes, which is his answer. And now the essay is going to explain why. So his introduction and rhetorical questions create that division. Then there's narration about his career, paragraphs 3 through 9. The only proof he really has that is lumped together with the refutation in paragraph 10. And then his conclusion is 11 and 12. It's together. It's the part that's his deliberative idea here at the end, where his law students in the future, he wants them to defend everyone with the rigor that he has, as well as his thesis, which is a claim of value. This is the demonstrative part. One person on your side, no matter what you've done, that's what keeps us a free people. That's what I believe. That's his conclusion. Okay, so that is the second 2 pages of your rhetorical analysis. I hope you were able to follow that. I hope it made sense, because now we're going to move on with some guided practice.